Hello everybody, this is Ryan Manning speaking, a product lead for ServiceNow's Project Portfolio Suite. I'm here to present the demo portion of the ServiceNow Project Workbench A New Way to Work session at Knowledge 15 this year. And before I do that, I kind of wanted to talk about where the Project Portfolio Suite fits in the context of ServiceNow's overall company strategy. And for those of you that were at Knowledge, you learned that we are promoting everything as a service. We are helping customers get to the service-oriented enterprise. And the add-on additions that we have are really all about managing a service, managing that service. We have a financial component where we're helping answer questions like, is it cost effective? We have a regulatory component where we're helping customers govern that service. And then we also have a suite of applications to help you grow and transform that service, and that's the Project Portfolio Suite. It includes demand management, resource management, project management, SDLC, and test management. And we will be focused on the Project Workbench today, but I do want to give you an overall picture through a story, ideation through to project completion. We'll start out by hearing from a sales manager that's submitting an idea through the service catalog. We'll briefly touch on the demand workbench to build a business case and score and review and approve that demand. And then we'll go into project where we'll spend a majority of our time talking about the project workbench. We'll touch on resource management, we'll hone in on our new agile capabilities, and we'll talk briefly about test management. And then we'll discuss our collaboration functionality and our reporting capabilities. So let's head into the product. So here we are in the context of David Liu. David is a sales ops manager, and as part of his daily routine, he often signs into the company feed. He uses this to keep his fingers on the pulse of the line of business. And if you see here, Ryan Manning submitted a poll asking if we, as the company, need a new quoting tool. And people have voted on that. I see that someone's tagged as an idea, so now I can go look at all the other ideas in the system. I see that David has weighed in, hoping that we can go with the new CRM solution. And I see Gayla from Finance has urged us to look at connecting to the ERP for this new quoting tool. So this is really for us all about crowdsourcing your idea. You want to present this idea and give people an avenue to comment on that idea, and people come from multiple different portfolios. You sort of think, what's more important, one demand that has been liked or voted on by 20 people from one portfolio, or one demand that's been liked by 10 people from 5 different portfolios. So you end up finding if you're sort of servicing more lines of business. But David has decided that he's going to submit an idea through the self-service portal. Very brief, very simple interface for the business end user. If this was someone like a business relationship manager or a business analyst or a demand manager, they probably wouldn't be going through this avenue. They'd be going through a form that has a lot more information. This is a new quoting tool. Just because. No, but we would put an actual description or business case here explaining why we want to do that, to give the idea manager or the business relationship manager a little bit more context. We'll be communicating with each other past this point through the live feed application that we just discussed. So if I go into my ideas, David actually already has an idea out there, and he can go into this My Ideas interface to see where the idea is at. I see the idea has been accepted, the demand has been approved, and the project is work in progress for a new cloud-based CRM. This is very important as we try to connect with the business and give them more visibility so that they don't think they're submitting these demands into some sort of black hole. And if I select that idea, again, I can collaborate through our live feed application. Anything I want to say further to this after submittal, and other people can weigh in. I can also go and query the knowledge base. And so this is very important as I try to look at other ideas that are out there, or maybe other functionality, other knowledge articles that have been posted. I see there's an Excel quoting tool article out there that sort of fits my search. I can go learn a little bit more about what people are using that for. And this idea could be eventually posted to the knowledge base. It's a great way to prevent just an influx of ideas, because people can self-service and find information. But if I go back in as Ryan Manning, myself, I'll be fulfilling a couple different roles here, and I'll start by going through to ideas. Here I'm just immediately brought to a dashboard of mine where I'm looking at my go live dates in the future and in the past. I have my different portfolios, who's been assigned, any indications I have of priority or stuff that's at risk. I can create my own labels with the board. I can see the activity on the board. We'll be going into the boards very shortly here, but they're very important for us, as you're going to find out. Here are my different projects opened by Project Manager. Here's how I'm spending across my different portfolios. But if I go into ideas, I'll see that new quoting tool idea that was submitted by David. And I can, after review with David, maybe collaboration through live feed, I can accept that, and a demand has been created. So along the process, demand idea will be created, and then a demand will be linked to that, and then a project will be linked to that, or maybe a change or an enhancement or a defect. You can connect this and send things through demand, whatever that large group of work that you would like. If I go into demand, just for purposes of speed with this demo, I'll go into an approved demand related to that quoting tool, just to discuss some of the processes that people follow within demand management. So here I see, and you can notice I like to use bookmarks, and I don't like to see the panes, and so I eliminate them to get more space. I see this was created, it was a strategic project was determined. If it was operational, maybe it was a change or a defect, and you can see how the form changes based on that information, because you don't always need as much information for a simple enhancement as you might a project. I can see that this Sugar CRM business service has been identified, and I can see all the other activities that are occurring around that business service. So I can make decisions if there's projects in place or if there's a big change coming through. I can push out expected due dates and just get a level of risk of taking on this specific demand. I have t-shirt sizing, which is very Scrum oriented, where you're not putting pressure on people to get this exact number of hours or this exact cost or NPV. You're really just saying, hey, based on level of complexity and other projects like it, it's kind of a t-shirt size of large. And that can be adjusted going forward. Capital outlay, which could be a hard-coded number or a roll-up from our expense line functionality and IT cost. Labor costs could be hard-coded, it could be a roll-up of our resource plan costs. Future return, that's a result of what kind of financial benefit I'll receive in 5 years. And what we actually did when this idea came in, this portfolio was identified, and we automatically populated a stakeholder register. And that's important really for speed. We know how important the stakeholder register is to ensuring that demands are comprehensive and accurate, but we know it kind of gets to be a pain in the neck if you have to do that 200 times every quarter. So we create these common players behind the scenes, and then we bring them in every time, and you can subtract and add to people to that specific demand in case things need to change. Avenue to capture requirements, and this is very important as we carry these requirements over to project and can reference them in test, so you can always give your developers or your testers insight into why they're doing why we did what we did. An avenue to identify some risks and record decisions, and build resource plans to do some of that tops-down resource planning. If I go into this resource plan and I say, okay, I want the sales team group, I can go to individual or group and say I need them for 20 hours between the 4th and the 8th. I see that there's a group rate on the sales team, and that's going to estimate a $4,000 cost, among other things, among other groups that are going to be allocated to this. And here I can go into the resource console to see what my team is working on during that period of time. So this is everyone in the sales team, and green meaning available, red meaning allocated. I can filter this view to find a DBA in South Carolina with a bill rate less than $125 an hour or something like that. I can do that here, and it will show me their availability. But that looks good, and we'll go back into the demand form. And once this has been sent out, it's kind of been screened in the screening state. We'll send out surveys to different stakeholders. For example, I've sent out a survey to David Liu related to risk and strategic alignment. I've also got different assessments or scores running on these fields up here. And you can see that this has already been screened, so some of these assessments have already fired for risk, ROI, strategic alignment, cost, size. You can create new assessments and have them fire on the form. You can create a new field and build an assessment on that field. It's very flexible. But once that is kind of been flown through the assessment process and brought into a qualified state, it will be scored, and that score will be presented on a bubble chart, much like this. You have value and risk here. We've just chosen that for the demo, but you can configure what the X and Y axis will be, and the size of the bubble is the t-shirt size of the demand. And so this is the demand workbench. It's new in Fuji. We had a bubble chart in our previous release, but what we wanted to do was create an interface where you could do a lot of things. You can bring in a lot of processes and bring in a lot of people. So here you have an analytic, and in the future you'll have a series of analytics. So picture yourself on an iPad device sort of swiping through a bubble chart and maybe how you're spreading your costs against your different portfolios. But for Fuji release, it's one analytic, and this is a widget that can be put on your dashboard. On the bottom you'll see the data presented in a list view or a VTB view or a form view. For example, if I wanted to hone in on this specific demand, I could go back into that form view that we saw earlier. And I have the filtering capabilities of ServiceNow here. If I wanted to remove this filter and say, show me demands with a name starts with sugar, it will isolate that demand we saw earlier. And if I don't like the score of that demand, I can double click on that to increase the size. This is typically where executives will get in a center of excellence meeting after this has been kind of fully scored. Some executive may say, hey, listen, I've been doing this for a while and it's a little bit more risky than you think, so we're going to put it over here. So that concept of being able to interact with the bubble chart is new in Fuji, and whatever you do up there will be reflected in the bottom interface and vice versa, giving you that inline analytics functionality. And it's a simple right-click, create project from that interface, or view demand from that interface, and you'll see that a project has been created in ServiceNow, and it will bring you into the project workbench. But let's try to demo the project workbench from scratch. So what you're looking at a current project, and I'm going to show you how to demo. I'm going to show you how to create a project from scratch, but just to kind of use this to explain the features on the top, you have the ability to go back into all your projects. You have the ability to query multiple different projects in the system up here. You can go back into the project detail to find risks, financial information, resource plans, things of that nature, other detail that maybe you don't need to see all the time. And you can go into live feed where you can collaborate with teams. You're really focused on getting people out of email. Here I have my different messages. So far so good. Don't screw up the demo. Off to a great start. I can manage my members here. I have some pending members. I see Eileen hasn't accepted that yet. I don't believe there's any hashtags, but those would appear here. I can favorite this so that when I come on my feed, my company feed, I can easily get to it. I can leave the group if I wanted to. So I really highly encourage you to explore using live feed within Project. I can add phases here. It can ask me to add a waterfall phase, an agile phase, or a test phase. I'll explain that momentarily. I can also add milestones, which are the circles you see up there in this sort of project paintbrush, as I like to call it. Here's where you can go to manage your stories, story backlog. I've already pulled from my my one-off backlog into my project for this particular project, and then I have an option of toggling between a list view and a visual task board or Kanban view in the list view below. I'm going into my different phases by selecting these bars here, and I get an indication of % complete. So if I wanted to see this in a VTB, view these different tasks, I could transition this over to close complete, and it would update the % complete of that specific phase. That can be based on duration, it can be based on effort. For if you integrate Agile Scrum, it'll be based on points. It's very configurable. But let's go back in and let's create a new project. Let's create that Sugar CRM quoting tool project. Let's assign, I want able to work on this. I want this to be a manual project, so I don't want any calculations occurring on this. I have that option, which is new in Fuji. This is my sales portfolio. And it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and create the project. And I want to enter into the project workbench. And you probably think that something's getting ready to load right now, but it's white space. It's simple. It's the user experience is supposed to bring in these teams that feel that they can consume a project finally. They're not team members that are sick and tired of, viewing Gantt charts and being exposed to that. It's a simple interface. We still have the Gantt charting functionality through the project detail tab that you saw earlier. But let's go ahead and start to create our project. So I'm going to create a planning phase, and I want that to be 10 days, and I'm going to submit that. It'll create that planning phase for 10 days, and if I select that, I can begin to very simply add tasks. So just task 1, task 2, task 3. I can view my dependencies and manage some data. I can edit this list view to bring in more information if I wanted to. This is just the out-of-the-box view. And if I created a custom field on a project form or project task form, I could bring this into that into this view. Now I want to manage stories. So I want to add some stories to my, my project based on some of the requirements that I received in demand. Here I'll just very simply, for speed, create 3 stories. And maybe 9 points each. So now my project backlog is 27 points. And in order to manage stories, we want to talk briefly about our Agile capabilities. So we have the concept of a team in Agile. If I go into my sales team, I'll see I have a few members here, a Scrum Master, developer, a product owner. I see the capacity of my team per sprint is 20 points. I see that I've got some sprints already here. I got a quoting tool sprint that's in the draft state. It's probably what I'm going to use to map my stories into. And I can create sprints here. I can plan sprints. It'll bring me to the sprint planning interface where I can take a look at my backlogs. I can query into different teams. If I want to go to my HR team, I could do that here, and I see there's already an existing sprint. I could pull stories into those sprints, and it'll adjust my my allocated points. This is the capacity of that team. It looks like they're a little bit over allocated at the moment. But I'm using this to show you how we would take stories that are kind of out there and map them into different sprints. And I want to take those stories in my story list, and I want to map them to my quoting tool sprint. If I go back into the workbench, into that same project, I'll begin to build that phase. So now I'm going to select Agile, and I'm going to call that my Agile phase. And I want my sales team working on this, and I want to bring in that sprint. If I had multiple sprints, I'd have it end at sprint 2, sprint 3, but I'm just going to do one sprint here. See, it brought in the dates of the sprint in, and I'm going to submit this. And you'll see those stories have now been mapped into this release, into this project rather. And maybe I just want to create a quick milestone on the 12th. Call that milestone number 1. Hit that on the 12th. You'll see that dot appear on the timeline view. And if I go into my Agile phase, I'd obviously probably want to see this in a VTB. I'll just briefly explain some of the features of the VTB. Here I have a log of all the activity that's occurring on my board. Here I have a place to manage my team members. So if I wanted to bring my team in automatically, or maybe I wanted to build it from scratch and bring other users in, I can do that here. I'm bringing Alejandro. And I want to kind of edit my labels because these don't really make sense to me, these out-of-the-box labels. I want this to be blocked. I like high priority. I want to make this one low priority. And I want to turn these other ones off that I don't really care about at the moment. So I've got my board. I'm beginning to assign resources to tasks here, make some indication of low priority, high priority, blocked, and I can then filter the board once this thing gets potentially messy. I can get more context here if I wanted to see more information on the top pane. Again, this is a workbench. We have an analytic on the top and data presented in a list view, a form view, or a VTB on bottom. But I feel like I'm ready to create my testing phase. So I'm going to go here and link to test. Title this testing. Build this out from 529 to, I want this to be 10 days. And I want to bring in my quoting tool test plan and submit that. So now I see my testing phase over here. And I'm going to go ahead and just quickly create my release phase. I'm just going to call this release. I'm going to have this start on the 11th. And I'll just make this 10 days too. And I've created my release phase. Now my testing phase, you saw I linked to a current test plan, so I have some users on this. I could expose those same labels if I wanted to. I'm going to keep the labels off because they're really not important to me, this team, and here's where I can execute my test plan. So let's go really quickly into the test plan to talk about our test management application. This is intensely focused on user acceptance testing. It's not an HPQC automated test suite quite yet. Here I have my project phase that it's linked to, ownership. I have my test cases for the quoting tool. If I go into test cases, I can see my, my test tasks that are related to that. I can assign defects if I want to. And here I might go to say, let me see it, let me create a test suite so that I can reuse that. I can cancel test execution. That's out right now because I want to rerun it. Again, I can see my requirements so that my testers can see why we did certain things. I could bring in my stories if I wanted to. I see that I've assigned test cases to Able, so I'll go ahead and notify testers. And if I do that and I go back and sign in as Able, I'll go to my assessments. Able now has a new assessment. Could be a demand, it could be testing. You could send out assessments for pretty much anything in the system. Here I'd start testing, and it would give me option to pass, fail, block each of these test tasks. So I'll pass this, and so on. And maybe I get to the end and something failed. And when I submit that, and you could bring in different fields, you can make this form look however you'd like in our survey designer, but I'll submit that as Able, and that'll be routed back to the test management application where someone can decide whether or not a defect is necessary. So if I sign back in as Ryan, myself, wearing many hats today, and I go back into my test plan, I see that I have a failed test case in which I can go in and assign or report a defect. Just call this, I'll link this to the business service again. I'll just call this defect 1 and submit that. So now I have a defect record created. And I have an overview of this in a dashboard that's available to me where I can go see test coverage across all my test plans, or maybe I want to hone in on the quoting tool to see pass, fail, and drill down into that. That's all very, very dynamic. But let's go back into our project workbench. I see that's done because I completed that, but I can transition tasks to close complete, and it will track my completion inside the project workbench. If it was a story and it needed to have user acceptance criteria, we would have that interface as well. I'll finish just back on the dashboard. Again, a lot of this stuff is on the workbenches is widgetized, so I could put that on there. On my dashboard, I can create multiple dashboards. I have a portfolio dashboard, but maybe I want to go to a PMO dashboard to view different cuts of data, such as my ideation funnel, ideas, 210 ideas in flight, 113 demands, 82 projects work in progress. So that is the project workbench, among other things in ServiceNow. I hope you like what you see. I'm looking forward to our Geneva release now. Thanks for your time.